Good morning. Have you ever noticed there's something weird going on with water? Let me explain. When I got up this morning, I noticed that there was ice on the top of these buckets of water, and that just reminded me of the incredible nature of water. I mean, we take it for granted because it's always been there, it's ubiquitous. It's nothing that we have to stop and think about. But when you stop and think about it, there's stuff going on that is so bizarre. Water is so different from other minerals or molecules, is the word. It has all of these properties, like a lot of properties that are very rare or unique to water. And those qualities, for one thing, make life possible. And that's why you always hear, they're looking for water on other worlds as a sign of life or potential life. It's because nothing else would do it. For instance, water, when it freezes, unlike other molecules, it expands. It gets larger, but less dense. There's more air space in it, which means that water, when it freezes, floats. And because it floats, it protects, temperature-wise, whatever's underneath it. If we lived on a planet with, say, liquid nitrogen, I have no idea if that's even possible, but I know it's not possible for humans, but let's imagine that there's a planet and it has liquid nitrogen. Well, when liquid nitrogen gets cold enough to freeze, it's going to freeze from the bottom up. So a riverbed or an ocean or a lake would freeze from the bottom up. So by the time the top freezes, everything that lived in that would be frozen as well. And nature is miraculous, and I'm sure that she can come up with ways to make that work for some kinds of life forms. But as we know life, we need the qualities of water to make that work. Another thing about water is that I don't even know if there's any other element that can exist so close together temperature-wise. For instance, you can be sitting in a hot tub or, even a lake for that matter. You could be sitting in a lake. It could be cold, but you could be sitting in it. If it's hot enough, there could be steam coming off, or there would be steam coming out with your breath. So that's water in both liquid and gaseous forms at the same time, right? Or if you're in a hot tub, you've got hot water, you've got the steam, the gaseous water, so liquid and gas, and you can have a bucket of frozen ice with, your sparkling apple juice in it or something, all at the same time. 3 states of water existing at virtually the same temperature range. That's incredibly unusual, and it makes so many things possible in terms of life. So, there are so many. I don't want to get into them all right now. I'm already really burning up the time. One of the things that I think is most fascinating about water is that it has a magnetic quality. So it has a magnetic charge, a magnetic field. And I think this is really important because what I believe is going on is that it's that magnetic charge that makes water such a fantastic storage medium for information. And I need to clarify, I'm not a scientist. I am an amateur scientist, I might say. I study science because I love it, which is what amateur means, not because it's my job or my vocation or anything. So I'm not claiming to give, other than when I say I'm quoting, studies or something. What I've intuitively downloaded, let's say, is that the magnetic charge of water is crucial to its function as the scientifically proven memory storage capabilities that it has. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Emoto's work, fantastic work about water molecules, water drops, in his case, taking on emotions and energies that we send out to it. He's the fellow who took photographs, like you would send love, for instance, to a water droplet and then photograph it as it froze, and showed how beautiful the crystals develop when in that situation. And then it's the same with other more refined feelings like gratitude and appreciation and that sort of thing, and just blessings and that kind of thing. And he also photographed water in less than ideal situations and how different they are. And that shows how much influence we have over things, in particular things that have water in them or are made of water, like our bodies, for instance, like the planet. And you may be aware that so-called skeptic sites have debunked Dr. Emoto's work, but we need to be aware, I think, that science and what passes for science now, which is often just skepticism and sort of a religion called scientific materialism, they have killed nature, and I'm not trying to diss science by any means. Like, science is really a wonderful thing, and it's just the dogma that's been blinding people, scientists in particular, is really harmful. And skepticism is sort of like the furthest reach of that. It has very little to do with what skepticism actually means, for instance, which used to mean having an open mind and not being convinced until there was proof. But nowadays, skeptics don't even accept proof. It's just, if it's against their dogma, it doesn't exist. So despite the fact that there are certain debunking things out there, you can't always trust them. And this is one instance that it doesn't seem to be true or accurate, because Lynn McTaggart has taken up the baton that Dr. Emoto had left behind, and is doing studies investigating the influence of intention on water, for instance. And they seem to be measurable and repeatable and verifiable. So that's, the definition of science. What was I going to say? I was going to say that science has kind of killed nature, all too literally, but I mean this figuratively. Science has said for 300 years, it's a very young mindset, remember. It's only about 300 years old, but it says that everything is mechanistic in nature and nothing is really alive. It really has said that. I mean, it's not saying that anymore, and a lot of scientists are actually getting on board with that, but the old school of science was that nothing is alive. It's all mechanical, it's all accidental. And it's starting to learn now that everything is alive. And that's starting to be proven in various ways. And it's fascinating to me because it's the love of nature that brought me to science, and I'm sure brought the original scientists to science. Like, what's going on with nature? There are so many fascinating things going on there, and so many questions and mysteries. And it's our love of that, I think, that makes us want to seek answers. So my point is really, after all this, my point is, see if you can't perceive that water is miraculous in some way. And I think that's why indigenous peoples, I think, as far as I know, all over the world, through all times of history, have perceived water or held water to be sacred. And I think that means more than it's necessary for life and it belongs to all of us, although I think that's part of what that means. I think it's a recognition that something truly unusual is going on with water. And what made it this way? We can't say. Why is water so different? There's no real reason, as far as we know today. And perhaps one day we'll know that, but I suspect it's not science that will teach us. Because the whys are beyond science. That's where inspiration has to come in, and context. So you can see that there's a lot going on with water that we don't understand. I've hinted at what potentials that gives us in terms of the memory storage capacity, but I don't really have time to get into that now. And really, I guess what I'd like you to get out of this, and what inspired me this morning to talk about this, is that just, connecting with the miraculous wonders of nature. Like waking up and looking out there and going, what is it that makes this happen a certain way? What can explain, for instance, those insane cloud formations that look like nothing natural could possibly have done that? What explains how water works, or why it's like that? And what does it mean in terms of what is it trying to tell us? Like, Earth is our teacher, not only on physical levels, but on spiritual levels. And this is one of those. It's like some kind of a hint. They're dangling someone, the divine, higher selves, whatever it is, dangling this bit of information, going, look at this. This is a clue that there's more going on here. And what might it mean? What might it be? And I don't have the answer for you today. Maybe another day I would, but not today. And we're out of time anyway, so I'll leave you with that question. And see if you can't just bring a little bit more awareness to the everyday miracles that we tend to overlook, and what they might mean. All right, so that's going to be my assignment for the day, and maybe you'll join me in that. I hope you have a most miraculous day on this fabulous, intriguing, and holy Mother Earth. Blessed be.